The phone call came while I was elbow deep in a transmission fluid change. The kind of job that turns your cuticles black for days no matter how hard you scrub. With orange pumice soap, cold November air slipped through the cracked bay door of my garage and curled around my neck like it knew what was coming. My mother's voice floated through the speaker, soft and polished, the way she always sounded right, before she delivered a blow she believed was merciful. Willow, sweetheart, we've decided it might be better if you didn't come to Thanksgiving this year, she said, pausing just long enough for the words to sink in. Ava is bringing Logan home for the first time. She wants everything to feel polished. Having you there in your work clothes, covered in grease, it might complicate the impression she's trying to make. You understand, don't you? I remember the exact moment they landed. My fingers tightened around the ratchet until the knurling bit into my palm, and the drip 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 of fluid into the drain pan suddenly sounded like blood. I remember the smell of hot metal and gasoline mixing with the faint sweetness of the pine air freshener Mr. Bennett insisted on hanging from every rearview mirror. I remember thinking, absurdly, that this was the first time in 29 years I had ever been formally uninvited from a family holiday. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I said, okay, Mom, in the same quiet voice I'd used since I was 12 and learned that fighting the Carter family narrative only left bruises no one else could see. Then I hung up, set the phone on the tool chest, and stared at the concrete floor until the gray blurred. I thought that was the worst of it. I was wrong. The next morning, long before the sun had cleared the flat irons, someone pounded on my apartment door hard enough to rattle the pictures on the wall. I opened it still half asleep, hair loose and wild around my shoulders, wearing an old t-shirt and flannel pajama pants, printed with tiny wrenches a joke. Gift from one of the shelter kids last Christmas. My entire biological family stood on the narrow landing like an accusation. Mom wore her camel coat buttoned to the throat, pearls glowing against the collar. Dad's jaw was clenched so tight I could almost hear his molars grinding. Ava stood slightly in front, wrapped in cream cashmere that had never seen a speck of dirt, arms crossed like a shield, and behind them, tall, clean-cut, hands in the pockets of a navy peacoat, was the boyfriend, Logan Hayes. He looked cold, confused, and this part lodged in my throat curious. Mom didn't bother with hello. Why did you tell people you weren't invited? Her voice sliced straight through the morning quiet. Grandma called us in tears asking what horrible thing we'd done. Do you have any idea how humiliated we were? Humiliated. The same word she'd used about me the day before. I opened my mouth to say I hadn't told anyone. That grandma must have heard it from someone else. But Dad was already shaking his head the way he did when he'd decided I was the problem and nothing I said would matter. You always do this, Willow. Twist everything so we look like the villains. Ava rolled her eyes so hard. I was surprised they didn't fall out. It's honestly unbelievable you're making this drama right now. You know how much pressure I'm under with my brand, that was the word she used for her life now, not life, not relationships, brand. They kept talking, voices overlapping. A practiced chorus I'd heard in different variations for 29 years. Ava's career depended on image. It wasn't a big deal to skip 1 year. I showed up smelling like a gas station. Family helps family, Willow. Or did you forget that? I stood in the doorway letting the cold pour in around me and said nothing. Silence had always been my only safe weapon. Finally, Mom drew herself up like a queen who'd grown bored of peasants. Well, do you have anything to say for yourself? Before I could answer, Logan stepped forward. Not aggressively, just forward. He tilted his head, eyes narrowing the way people do when they're trying to place a familiar face. Hold on, he said slowly. Willow Carter. Boulder? The porch went perfectly still. Even the wind seemed to pause. Ava hissed, Logan, what are you doing? Under her breath, but he ignored her. You're the Willow Carter who restored that 70 to Dodge Charger last year. The midnight blue one with the rebuilt 440 and the hand-fabricated dash. People lost their minds over it on the Moper forums. That was you. I felt the air leave my lungs in a rush that had nothing to do with the cold. My family stared at him, then at me, as if he'd just claimed I was secretly royalty. Mom's mouth opened, closed. Dad frowned like he was trying to remember if he'd ever heard the word charger before. Ava's perfect lipstick form though was almost comical. Logan kept going, talking directly to me now, excitement creeping into his voice. I followed the entire build thread. The way you saved the original interior. The custom stainless brake lines, your attention to detail was insane. I must have watched the reveal video a dozen times. I couldn't speak. All these years, I poured my heart into metal and horsepower because engines never judged me, never compared me to my sister, never asked me to be smaller. And here was a complete stranger who had seen every late night, every blister, every triumphant minute of it. Mom recovered first. A month later, Christmas Eve found my garage transformed. I'd strung fairy lights from the rafters, pushed the rolling tool chests against the walls to make room for folding tables, and filled every inch with warmth. Mr. Bennett sat in the corner regaling teenagers from the youth shelter with stories of delivering mail in blizzards. Tasha's little girl. Lily ran between legs clutching a cookie shaped like a lopsided star. Someone had brought a Bluetooth speaker playing low, soulful holiday music that mixed with the smell of turkey, cinnamon, and motor oil in a way that felt exactly right. I was reaching for another mug of cider when the bay door rattled so violently the string lights shook. Before I could move, it flew upward and Winter roared in along with three familiar silhouettes. Mom, Dad, Ava. They looked half frozen and fully feral. Mom pointed at me like I was a criminal on a wanted poster. You humiliated us in front of the entire family. Do you know what people are saying after you spread lies about Thanksgiving? Dad's voice boomed off the metal walls. You think you're better than us now with your little garage and your internet friends? Ava shoved past them both, mascara tracking black rivers down her cheeks. Logan left me. She screamed. He walked out on Christmas morning because of you. The room went deathly quiet. Every face turned. Mr. Bennett slowly rose. Kane gripped tight. Tasha pulled Lily close. I opened my mouth, but a new voice cut through the cold. No, Logan said from the doorway behind them, snow melting off his shoulders. She didn't take me. I left because I finally saw what you all are. He stepped inside, letting the door roll shut behind him. and the garage suddenly felt warmer for his presence and colder for theirs. Ava spun toward him, cares freezing on her lash. "Why are you here?" "Because I wanted to spend Christmas somewhere real," he said, eyes finding mine across the room. "Your sister built that. You never even tried to see it." Mom drew herself up, pearls gleaming like armor. "Willow, tell him he's wrong. Tell him you didn't pay our bills for years. Fix everything that broke. Carry this entire family on your back." I walked to the workbench, opened the wide drawer, and pulled out the thick brown envelope I'd prepared weeks earlier long before I admitted to myself why I needed it. Inside were printouts, receipts, bank statements, every dollar I'd quietly funneled into their lives while they pretended I was invisible. I held it out. Dad snatched it with a triumphant sneer that died the second he unfolded the first page. Insurance payments, mortgage top-ups labeled emergency, Ava's credit card balances I'd paid off so her brand wouldn't suffer a late mark. The new furnace, the roof 3 times. The list went on for pages. Mom's face drained of color so fast I thought she might faint. Ava's breath hitched in a sob. "You kept track," Mom whispered, as if receipts were a betrayal. "No," I said quietly. "I kept boundaries. You just never noticed them until now." The silence that followed was heavier than any snowstorm. Every person I'd chosen to invite that night watched my blood family shrink under the weight of simple, documented truth. Dad's voice cracked. "You'll regret this." I shook my head. "I already told you what I regret." Ava lunged toward Logan, hands reaching. "Please come home. This isn't who we are." He looked at her with a sadness so profound it hurt to witness. "It's exactly who you've always been. I just refused to see it until." Willow made it impossible to keep lying to myself. Mom tried one last time, clutching the pearls like a rosary. "No one will believe this." I gestured slowly around the garage at the teenagers who'd learned to change their own all here. At Tasha, who'd escaped a violent ex with my help. At Mr. Bennett, who'd eaten Thanksgiving alone for 15 years until I started inviting him. At every face that had chosen me back. "They already do," I said. I walked to the bay door, hit the button, and watched it rise with a mechanical groan. Snow swirled in, but the warmth inside held. "Leave," I said, softer than the first time, but no less final. For the first time in my life, they listened. Logan waited until their taillights vanished, then turned to me. "You okay?" I nodded, surprised to realize it was true. Something vast and aching inside me had finally settled not into anger, not into triumph, but into peace. The kind of peace you only earn after carrying a weight so long you forgot you could set it down. I walked back to my chosen family, raised my mug, and said, "Let's eat." The room exhaled as one. The storm raged all night, but inside the garage the laughter grew louder, the lights brighter, the air lighter. When Logan left hours later, he pressed a hand to my shoulder, brief, respectful, honest, and said, "You built something beautiful here. Don't let anyone ever take it from you again." In the weeks that followed, their silence stopped feeling like punishment and started feeling like oxygen. The garage filled with more noise, more life. The teens came back every Saturday. Tasha brought Lily to help hand me tools she couldn't yet pronounce. Work orders stacked up faster than I could finish them. And for the first time, the money stayed in my account, instead of quietly vanishing into someone else's image. January came and went. Spring followed, then another winter. A full year later, I stood outside the garage on a quiet December evening, watching snow drift across the lot in slow, lazy spirals. The string lights still glowed behind me, brighter now because I'd added more. Inside, another mismatched, perfect holiday dinner was in full swing. My life wasn't flawless. Some nights I still woke up reaching for a phone that would never ring with an apology. Some mornings the old ache flared when I passed the exit for my parents' house. But the ache had grown manageable, like a healed bone that only twinges before rain. I no longer chased a seat at a table that never wanted me. I had built my own. And somehow miraculously, mercifully, it had filled itself with people who saw me, grease and all, and stayed anyway. If you've ever had to walk away to say to yourself, know this, you are not alone, and the table you build on the other side might just turn out to be the one you were always meant to sit at.